Hi, superheroes. Thanks for tuning in to Purdue University College of Veterinary Medicine's VetaHumanz Live, the place to get insider information about veterinary superheroes. I'm your host, Dr. Sandy, aka Pink Phoenix, veterinarian and leader of the League of VetaHumanz. VetaHumanz develops superpowers after overcoming extraordinary challenges. The League aims to create an inclusive and diverse veterinary profession where we support each other and future VetaHumanz like you. In today's episode, we'll meet Captain Upside, Dr. Mia Cary, and learn all about being a change agent. Let's get started. Thanks for being on the show, Captain Upside. I always love the energy that you bring. I'm just excited to have you on.
Well, Pink Phoenix, it is my pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So to get started, can you tell us your story?
My story? Whoa, we all have lots of stories. I can share that I entered veterinary medicine. It's kind of, I'm not one of those folks that grew up wanting to be a vet, which I know is sometimes unusual, because I think what percent? Is that like 60% of us? There's a stat out there. I'm not one of them.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't you either? Okay. All right, good. We're in good company. So I actually studied marine mammals. So I was a marine mammal researcher after my undergrad, and which you can see, but those listening to the podcast can't. I've got whales all behind me. Well, I was loving it. So I was doing whale research. I was up in Barrow, Alaska. I'd spent time in Dominican Republic working on different species of whales, and I was loving it. But I wanted a next step. I wanted to be able to lead the projects and decide what type of research that we were going to do versus being on someone else's project. So I knew that meant a degree. I needed to go farther in my education. So, kind of long story short, I ended up in a joint DVM PhD program at University of Florida, but I was 100% going to go back to research. I was like, get these 2 degrees, go back to research, life is good. And 2 things happened. One, I was like, 2 degree programs at the same time, hard pass. It was just too much. It was too much for me. Every time I was studying for vet school, I was feeling guilty because I wasn't focusing on the research, and vice versa. If I was focusing on the research, I'm like, what am I doing? I had to go study for that anatomy exam. So I fell in love in vet school with the clinical side of vet med, which I'd only been exposed to a little bit prior to. So that, when I graduated, I'm like, oh, I definitely want to be in clinical veterinary medicine, forget the research. And I went that route and worked in a small animal practice, dogs and cats, loved it, Millhopper Vet in Gainesville, Florida. And then I just got lucky. I mean, I feel such a lucky person. And it's like one opportunity after another. And I was able to use this veterinary degree in so many different ways. And I've had quite the interesting path, as we all have, right? And so, yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
Excellent. I can't wait to talk about all of your paths. Before we get into that, how did you decide on your superhero name?
So Captain Upside was, I spent some time thinking about it, right? Because there's so many different things that we could all choose. And I'm really big that play to our strengths and that all of us have superpowers. We just sometimes need to take a moment to think about what they are. And I remember somebody telling me once that your superpowers may be, not always, but could be what other people tell you you're really good at, but you may not realize. And one of those for me was connecting people. So that's something that I love doing. I really love doing. And the other one is that no matter what, I can find an upside. I mean, I am not a cup half full kind of person. I'm a cup is refillable. So no matter where it is, we can refill it up. And so as I started thinking about that, and I looked at some of the other folks that were already on the VetaHumanz website, I was like, Captain Upside, that's me. So that's how it came to be.
I love it. And you are excellent at connecting people and uplifting.
Can we hear about yours and how yours came to be? Are you able to share that real quick?
How mine is?
Yeah.
Everyone asks me, and I should have it prepared by now, but it's a dual thing. The origin is from, I had recovered from a knee incident and a few surgeries. And my physical therapist's logo is the Phoenix. So I pretty much stole his logo and made it pink, so I would be Pink Phoenix. And he always says, reborn of fire, strong as iron. So for me, it's a symbol of resilience, but it's also a symbol that I can constantly reinvent myself. I'm not the same person that I was even yesterday. So we all have the opportunity to start over and be new and be better and stronger.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And that's so true, right? Every day is a new day.
And I love my life.
Oh, yay. That's awesome.
So you talked about kind of the transition in the path. Was there a specific moment when you were like, yeah, I want to be a veterinarian? When you decided?
The specific moment for me was I was doing a lot of anatomy research. So back on the whales, and I did so many different things. And what I loved the most is, this is going to sound horrible, but what I loved the most is when we were doing necropsies. And
it's my favorite.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's like opening a present.
Yes, and it's so like mind-boggling. And I don't consider myself a religious person, but a very spiritual person. And also, so my defining moment is this is going to be like maybe a lot for a lot of people, but my love of veterinary medicine and this idea that there's something bigger than ourselves. And I was raised Catholic. I always consider myself a recovering Catholic. And it's like, there's like a lot there that I didn't believe. But I knew there was something bigger than myself. But as I'm dissecting these huge whales, right? And you're seeing the circulatory system and nervous system, and you're seeing the little bones that used to be their limbs, and now they're pelvic remnants. It's like, what? This is amazing. And so for me, it was tying in that clearly there's something bigger than ourselves that is making these cool critters evolve. And I just loved the anatomy and how it all fit together and how each species was so different and yet in a lot of ways so similar. So I think that's specifically why veterinary medicine appealed to me. And my undergrad was pre-med. And ironically, the one thing I didn't want to be was a human doctor, but I liked biology and chemistry. So it was like a natural pre-med degree. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's a good degree. When I graduated from undergrad, I was like, well, I don't want to be an MD. What do I want to do? And I loved marine mammals and I loved research. So that's what led to the 6 years. But I really put it all together and I can't remember the specific day, but I was definitely, elbows and knees deep into a bowhead whale on the Arctic tundra going, ooh, veterinary medicine. And there were vets on the project. I was a biology assistant at the time, and there were veterinarians, and they were cool. And they let me dabble in their veterinary practice there in Barrow, Alaska. But it just came to be. But even then I was like, oh, I'm going to do research, right? I want the veterinary degree because I want to work on non-human animals, but I want the PhD because I want to focus on research. And then, as I said, it's like I evolved to like, okay, I don't want both. Going to pick one, and the veterinary medicine route won out.
That is so awesome. I totally get what you're saying. I was just talking to one of our incoming students saying how sometimes and very often I just get lost in the beauty of it all.
Yes.
Like you just can't believe that we even exist.
Exactly.
And how complex cells are, and it's just astounding. It
is, and exciting and beautiful, and yes, and the fact that we can, regardless of where our corner is in the veterinary space and role, right? Whether we're a veterinarian, veterinary technician, whatever our role is, that there are so many different ways that we can look at, whether it's like the One Health approach, right? The fact that are we looking at little creatures, or their connection to the environment, or their connection to humans, or all of the above? There's just so many different aspects.
We get to see all the perspectives and practice that every day, which is what life is, right?
It is, indeed.
Viewing things from everybody's perspective.
Exactly, and that it's all interconnected, right?
So this is a perfect segue. So you are CEO and change agent of Cary Consulting and are just doing some absolutely amazing things in that role.
Thank you.
So I want to hear about Cary Consulting. Can you tell us about the moment that you conceived, your vision of Cary Consulting, and what was the process of making that vision a reality?
So, well, thank you for those kind words, first off. And I always knew that I wanted to be out on my own. I have a very entrepreneurial spirit, and I've always been blessed that the people that I've worked for have been very empowering. So while I always thought down the road I'd have my own company, every opportunity that presented itself before then, I was like, well, I'm working for this great company, for this great boss. It's very empowering. I'll wait, on my own company. But then in 2019, for a variety of reasons, it just felt right that the time was now to launch on my own. And as I was still working for AVMA at the time, and so I was giving them my all and starting to noodle on, well, what could my business plan look like? What do I really want to focus on? And so I spent time creating my own personal and professional purpose statement. And it just came to me so clearly. And I revisit it all the time because I do think personal purpose statements should evolve. But at the time, and still now, it was activating others to thrive. That is my jam.
That.
It is my jam. And I felt like I was doing that at the AVMA in my role and in all of my previous roles. So it wasn't like I wasn't doing that. But for anyone that is an entrepreneur and works for themselves, the autonomy of 100% getting to say yes to what you want to do and no to what you don't want to do is very freeing. And so I'm so grateful because when I told my boss, Janet Donlin, it's like, guess what? I'm going to start my own business and I'm giving you my notice. She was wonderful. She tried to talk me out of it, in a kind way. But then when she saw my determination and what I wanted to do and how it fit well with my strengths, and she said, well, okay, you do that and AVMA will be your first client. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, perfect. So
that's great.
It was so rewarding. One, because she was just so supportive and grateful in that transition, but then also to have my first client be the organization that I was leaving to start my own company. It was kind of, okay, maybe I'm on the right path. And that every opportunity that comes up now, I apply it to my purpose statement. And I've had some really lucrative offers for clients that are good people doing good things, but it really wasn't aligned with the purpose of activating others to thrive. And so I have to say no to those. But for example, I'm sure we'll talk about it here in a moment. I'm not supposed to have favorite clients, but I do. Pride VMC, what? And
yeah,
right. And so,
coming up.
Right, anyway, so be really aware of my purpose and what drives me for me as an individual and for my company allows me to do things that hopefully help activate others to thrive. But I also know that I really don't have that power, right? It's not like I'm like magically activating others to thrive, but I try to tee up resources and conversations and ask good questions so that folks will then, it's kind of like motivation. We cannot motivate others, but we can help create environments where they motivate themselves. And that's what I love doing.
Oh, this is excellent. And now I have all these other questions. But first, I respect you so much because I think of that as well, starting my own business. I did try it once and it totally failed. I just have that's not my skill set. You're approaching this, you're starting a new business. Did you have those skill sets? Did you have that background? Or how did you go about figuring out all the steps of what you had to do to create your own business?
Well, I had a lot of it, and then I continued, just like everything, right? We all continuously learn, and so my knowledge goes deeper with every day. But thankfully, for a lot of the other organization I had worked for, I'd done a lot on the business side. So having a business plan, in fact, I created a template of a business plan that we used at the NAVC. So I actually took the business plan that I created for them and used it for myself. But I'd always had, as part of my work, was business focused. So whether it was, I remember, I want to give them credit. I think it was NAVC, but it may have been AVMA that sent me to University of Pennsylvania for a real deep dive in a business course. It was like a week-long leadership business course about the accounting, the aspects that we don't get in vet school. So I'd had training in that, education in that, and then a lot of my jobs, were portions of it were focused on the financial and business side. So I had a lot of that coming into it, but then I also had a lot of mentors. I have what I encourage others to have is a personal advisory board, right? It's like all the people.
I love that. I have that.
Yeah, right? You have to. There's so many amazing humans out there that are willing to serve as mentors. And so I could also tap into those folks and say, this is where I'm at. This is what I know. This is what I know I don't know. And I know there's that huge piece of the pie that I don't know. So where should I go next in terms of educating myself and running my own business? And so every day I learn more. This morning, I met with a financial expert who I'm turning my business from a sole proprietorship to an S Corp. And I know that it was the right time to do that for a variety of reasons. And, I'm meeting with people to say, all right, this is not my expertise, but it is yours. So how can I work with you? So it's tapping into experts as well.
So tell me, what's the difference between a sole proprietorship?
Well, it comes to a point with, it takes a lot more actually paperwork for the S Corp and filing with the state, but it can be better for taxes, and you have less of the self-employment taxes. But it made me think of something else. Wait, something that you said, S Corp. Oh, I lost it. But it was in this process of deciding that I talked to a lot of different people. And, I've been 3 years out now on my own. And this is sole proprietorship has worked well for me, but just the timing to move on to that is now. So getting support to do that from those that do it every day is helpful.
I love personal advisory board.
Yes.
Did you come up with that?
No. I don't know who came up with it, but I think we should all have one, right? Because I believe in mentorship, but just having one mentor isn't good, right? You got to have lots of mentors because everyone has their different areas of expertise. And I also think we should all serve as multiple mentors for others, depending on what others need.
Right. We give and get. I learned so much from the people who I mentor, and then I have my personal advisory board. I'm going to call it that.
Love it. Well, mentorship is a lot like allyship, right? Some days we're the one giving, being the mentor. Some days we're the mentee. Allyship. Some days we're benefiting from an ally, and other days we're being the ally, depending on the situation and the individual. So it's easier to go through life when you've got people that you can tap into their strengths. I remember my very first formal mentoring program at Novartis Animal Health, and they had this really nice, big, formal mentoring program, and I don't think mentoring always needs to be formal by any means, but it was, it was just very structured, which at the time was good for me because I was so new in my career, and I remember the head of IT was my mentor, and he met me, and he's like, I don't know why they chose me, I don't know what I have to teach you, but let's give it a go. But he was a senior leader with the company, and he knew a lot about leadership, and it was fabulous. From day one, we were both learning from each other, right? It was just it was such a good relationship. I learned a ton, and he, was very candid that he learned a ton too. And it's always been a two-way street, which, again, one of the beauties of mentorship.
Yeah, that's how I feel with my students. I learn so much every day.
Yes.
Another unplanned question,
Yes.
without telling us your deepest secrets. What are some key recommendations on how to activate someone to thrive?
Ooh, how to activate someone. So to me, it's getting to know them, understanding what their jam is, understanding what their barriers are. And it's actually how, when I led teams in corporate, it was how I worked as a leader. What are the tools that they need that they don't have? And oftentimes it's what they don't know they need. And what are the barriers that can be eliminated? And to me, that's helping to activate others to thrive, is so that, and one of the things I try to do is anyone that I work with that doesn't have a purpose statement, it's such a great place to start. Because how do you possibly know what to say yes or what to say no to if you haven't spent that self-awareness time to figure out what matters most? So I think people often have the ingredients for that recipe for thriving, but they've either got barriers and they don't see it, or, they're dealing with real challenges. And I certainly don't have all the solutions, but I can tee up resources, I can listen and connect people with other people that are experts in the areas that they may need help. So I think that's a big part of it, is honestly listening and teeing up resources.
So following up on that, how does one become a change agent?
I'm so glad you asked that. It's one of my favorite questions because it's a decision. All it is a decision. At any point and at any time of any day, any human can be a change agent if they choose. If they choose to approach their world with a growth mindset, with a solution-oriented mindset. And when I was choosing my title, CEO, obviously, although I'm a company of one, I could have been anything, but CEO, head of my company. And the reason I chose change agent as the other title is a reminder. Every time I see my email signature, I hand over my business card, which still occasionally happens. It seems old school, but it does happen. Or that I'm asked this question. It's a reminder myself. Hey, Mia, it's a new day. As you said, every day is a new day. Today, am I going to focus and operate and approach my work and life as a change agent or not? It's my choice. And so it's a reminder to myself, and some days I'm not. I mean, as much as I believe in it and I want to be, there are some days that I am the farthest thing from a change agent, and I'm just trying to get through things, like one little tactic at a time. So for me, in terms of how to be it, it's a choice. Approach your day with an open growth mindset, and bam, you can be a change agent.
I love it. All right. I know you've been waiting to talk about it, and I can't wait as well. You are also CEO of Pride Veterinary Medical Community. So tell us about Pride VMC for people who don't know about it, and how you became CEO and what that entails and all the things.
I would love to talk about Pride VMC. So as I alluded to earlier, and I always say, you're not supposed to have favorite kids, and I do have 3 bonus kids, no favorites, but same thing with clients. I'm not supposed to have favorites, but Pride VMC is absolutely my favorite client, and I'm okay saying that. And so if you're not familiar with the Pride Veterinary Medical Community, they are a nonprofit organization celebrating their 30th anniversary next year, believe it or not. They've had a lot of different names over the years, so they've had different iterations, but as Pride VMC, they'll be celebrating 30 years. But really the focus, the mission of Pride VMC is to create a better world for the LGBTQ plus community. And that's what the board and myself, day in and day out, that's our focus. And I have been a member for many, many, many years. And when I was at AVMA, I wore so many different hats, like we all do, but one of my hats that I wore was being the point of contact for AVMA with Pride VMC. And so I had a lot of interaction with the board, and actually won their leadership award. I think it was 2018, which was such an honor. And just had a lot of interaction with them from my time as their kind of liaison to the AVMA, but also as a member. And so it was actually within that first month of launching out on Cary Consulting, I saw that they had been really trying to get more infrastructure in place. And one of my strengths is association management. I've worked as association leads for previous organizations, and I've been on the volunteer leader side. I served on the American Association of Industry Vets board for 2 different stints. I was their president, so I really understood it from both sides. So I actually just sent a message to some of their leaders saying, look, I don't know where you're at, what you're doing, but I've launched out on my own. If you would want a staff support person, I would be honored to interview with you, and how can I help? And the timing worked out really well based on where they were, what they were looking to do. And long story short is they hired me. And so that's been 3 years and change. Oh, no, wait, it will be 3 years this fall. And it has been such a wonderful ride. And I am so honored to serve as their CEO. I learn every day from the other members, from the board of directors. We just had a change in the officers where Dane Whitaker stepped down. So he is immediate past president, and Abby McElroy stepped in as president. But the entire board, it's just fabulous. And so to be able to invest time and energy with a community that you believe in and that you're a part of, it's freeing. And in fact, can I say one more thing? I feel like I'm just talking on.
Of course.
So I went to the AVMA convention, earlier this year, and I went with a really heavy heart. It was just, with everything that's going on in society, the, reversal of Roe versus Wade, the gun violence, all the anti-LGBTQ plus legislation in so many states. And, yes, I'm always an upside kind of person, but it's heavy with everything that we're all dealing with. And so I went to the AVMA, I was presenting, I was supporting Pride VMC in some meetings, and the first thing I did was get to facilitate the strategic planning meeting for Pride VMC. And I'm so glad that was first on the agenda, because being around that group of people that are so forward thinking and wanting to create change, and yet they're realistic with all the struggles, and it was just so enriching and wonderful and an honor to be with them all day on that Thursday before the convention started. That then I went into the rest of the convention, I'm like, I got this, right? So just, yeah, exactly.
You were activated to thrive.
I was absolutely thankful to those wonderful board members. So yes, that's what I do with them. A big chunk of my time is support that organization, and it's an honor to do so.
Within that organization, what is the accomplishment that you're most proud of?
It's going to sound not sexy, but it is something I'm proud of, and that is creating an infrastructure. As much as I love strategy, and I do, I can also be very tactical, and they were in the point of their growth where they just needed to get organized around their infrastructure and policies and who's doing what, when, and where. So I helped to create that, which then led to a really strong succession plan. So like many medium or small organizations, when it comes time for new board leaders, it's like, no, you do it. No, you do it. Well, come on, you have to do it. You haven't done it yet, right? And Pride BMC was the same way. It was basically who could talk each other into sitting on the board. But where we are now is we actually have an incredibly strong board of directors that has a runway of 4 or 5 people that are in line for president. Things may change, right? It may not end up being them. But the fact that people are saying, hey, when it's my turn, I'd love to serve as president. And I think it's helped create that stability, which then allows them to do the amazing things that they're doing. So I'm really proud of that.
I love that. You have sustainability and growth and vision.
Yes.
And I have to share a personal story because I have been a member for many, many years. And I renew my membership every year. And a few years ago, I renewed online, and I get this letter in the mail. And it's a handwritten letter. And who writes letters anymore? And I opened it up, and it was from you, thanking me for renewing the membership.
Aww.
And it just completely made my day. And that was when I was like, I have to get to know this person.
Fun.
And we connected. Yeah. So thank you. You activated me to thrive. That thoughtfulness that we don't see too often anymore. And it means so much. So keep doing that. It's very special.
Oh, thank you so much.
We don't want to lose that.
Thank you.
So, what has been your best day ever as a vet so far?
So I'm going to tell you my answer, and I'm going to tell you why. A little tiny story to go along with it. So I will tell you this day. And the reason I answer that is that I am trying really hard to live in the present moment and really just be grateful. And hopefully you can't hear that. There's a storm that's coming around me, but hopefully it won't bother our conversation. Maybe it's like the being that's out there giving me an exclamation point for being in the present moment, right? The thunder goes, you're on track.
Thor.
Yes. And you've got behind you've got the big lightning bolt right there.
Lightning.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for all the reasons, right, that we know being mindful and being in the present moment is a good thing and healthy and helpful. So there's that. And so here's the quick story. I was visiting my mom right before COVID hit. And unfortunately, I lost my mom during COVID. But on one of my... Thank you. We're actually doing a celebration of life for her in October. I can't wait. But one of my last visits with her, where she was not super strong, and I was always trying to think, well, what can I do that would be fun for her? And she and I both love to eat. So I was like, I'll bring her something really fun for breakfast the next day, because I was going to come back and visit her before I left town. And I was sitting next to her, and I asked, Mom, out of all the things that I could bring you, and we were eating dinner, so this was the night before I was going to bring her breakfast, and I had to leave town. I was like, of all your favorite meals and all the different foods, what's your very favorite meal? Because I was going to bring it to her the next day. And she just looked at me, and she wasn't all the way there all the time, and so I never knew if we were engaging or not, but she looked at me and she said, well, this one, of course. And I was like, And my mom, she's amazing. I wish you had the chance to meet her. She just helped talk about big mentors. But it was just like she meant it. She's like, well, this meal, because I'm eating it, I'm with you, I'm in the moment. I'm like, oh, Mom, you're so good. And she looked at me like, whatever, and she just kept eating. But it was so profound for me. And so it's just a reinforcement that, this moment, living in this moment, it's a beautiful thing to have, and I'm grateful for it.
It is a beautiful thing. Yeah. That's a great story.
Thank you.
So what excites you right now? What are you passionate about? Are there new things you're learning?
There's so much that excites me. I will say the 2 things that excite me the most right now, there's so many. 2 that I'll share that come to mind. One is, and this actually started before COVID, but we've kept doing it, and that is a monthly meeting with all of the affinity organizations in veterinary medicine. And so with my CEO, Pride BMC CEO hat on, I helped to start that. And since then, I mean, there's so many people that are engaged with it. We have a different call leader every month, but all of like Multicultural VMA, Black DVM Network, Latinx VMA, and on and on and on, all come together. And not everyone makes every meeting, right? Because life. But we just get on there and we share what's working, what's not. We amplify each other's voices through our social media channels and talk about, I mean, it doesn't matter how I'm feeling going into that meeting. At the end of it, I'm like, life is great. I love this profession, right? And so that to me is just fabulous. And so now being in person again, getting to meet a lot of these folks, I feel like I already know them, but I'm seeing them. I'm like, have we only talked on Zoom? How is that possible? So that, I just love that. And that fuels me every time we meet. So that's one. And then the other one I want to mention is I just recently, it's probably been like 6 months now, have been asked to serve on the advisory board for Dean Ruby Perry at Tuskegee College of Vet Med. And so I remember she asked, I was like, why me? And it's like, how cool. Of course the answer is yes. So just being able to work with the other advisory board meetings and support her and support Tuskegee is such an honor. So those are two things that come to mind that I'm super excited and passionate about right now.
That is fantastic.
Thank you. What about you? Wait, what about you? What's one thing you're passionate about right now?
Right now, the thing that happened today, I am going to start doing a before-school program with an elementary school in Tennessee to get the kids excited about learning. So my reinvention or next step for the League of VetaHumanz is I'm incorporating movement into all the lessons. So we're not just reducing health disparities by diversifying our profession, we're also building healthy habits with kids and their families. Fabulous. So talk about being energized when I'm with a group of kids and we are learning together and moving together and having an awesome time. That's what fills me.
Oh, that is so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm such a believer that, you know, bodies in motion stay in motion, as Isaac Newton proved to us. But it's so true, right? And to be able to incorporate that with what you're doing. Oh my gosh, I love it.
So what's your future vision?
My future vision. Well, I want to keep on doing what I'm doing. I feel very lucky and very grateful. And for me, it's identifying groups, individuals, those that may not, that I can really help, right? That's what I want to keep doing, is where are those folks, individuals, independent veterinary practices, independent individuals that are in this space that I can help support. To me, that is where I want to continue to devote my time and energy. And, you know, this profession has a lot of challenges that we're all very, very aware of. And yet, which are two of my favorite words, there's so much potential. And there are so many people doing amazing things like yourself, which I am so honored to be able to be around. So to me, it's just continuing to be part of the solution and trying to avoid being part of the problem. That's what my vision is.
Well, you're definitely part of the solution in every way.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So you do so much every day in your life. You're everywhere and so uplifting. What do you do for you to refill? What do you do for fun?
So my favorite activities involve being outdoors and water. So swimming, and actually what got me through COVID and kept me sane was stand-up paddleboarding. I just started doing that pre-COVID, and my husband and I had bought paddle boards, and there's a lake like 2 miles from our house. So even in the height of COVID, when no one could be near each other, we could take out our little paddle boards and get out on the water and just be in nature. So for me, it's anything, that's where the most. And we try to, we do swim laps every day for exercise, but also just to lay and play in water, being on the water, in the water, around the water. That's where I definitely refill my refillable cup, is doing things like that. And motion, like we've been talking about. Staying active. I'm not the most fittest person on the planet. However, I do try to exercise every day because I feel so much better and stronger when I do. So those are some things that work well for me.
How did you get into paddleboarding?
How did I first get into it? I think I had rented them once or twice, and I just loved the options that you have. I always like variety. I'm a big person on like every day should not be the same. I love variety. And with a paddleboard, I mean, you could stand up and paddle, which is really hard if there's waves. And so that's a good workout. You can lay on it and paddle. You can get off of it and swim in the water. And so there's just so many different things you can do with it that my husband and I had started, instead of buying stuff for each other for birthdays and anniversaries, it's like, oh my gosh, we have enough stuff. Let's buy experiences. And so we'll go to the theater or to the movies or buy each other stand-up paddleboards. And so now we have these stand-up paddleboards. They're inflatable. We take them everywhere with us. And yeah, so I think it's because I tried it once and loved it. It keeps me near water, and there's so many different things you can do with them. And, oh my gosh, and did you know, okay, you know how there's 9 dimensions of well-being? Mm-hmm. And there are some activities that are double dip activities that tap into multiple dimensions. Well, and I learned that term from Marcy Kirk, by the way. I'm sure she always I didn't invent it, but I heard it from her. Double dip activities. Stand-up paddleboarding, I am convinced that it can tap into all 9 dimensions of well-being, even to the point, because there's a career dimension of well-being. And my bonus daughter and I, in the height of COVID, on paddleboards, created a marketing campaign for Pride VMC while we were on the paddleboards. So, anyway, big fan.
I'm sold. I completely believe it. Yeah, just finding that thing, like you said, that fills you up.
Yes.
That taps into multiple dimensions of well-being. Yes. And if you're fortunate enough to find that, it's such a gift.
It is.
And fortunate enough to go out and seek it.
Yes, and for our listeners, it's kind of like with our superpowers. If you think you don't have superpowers, you absolutely do. And if you think you don't have those things that really lift you up, that tap into all those dimensions of well-being, you do. You just may need to spend some time exploring and experimenting. Yeah,
and sometimes it takes extraordinary circumstances, how the VetaHumanz happened, life's challenges to find your superpowers.
Yes.
Now, a lot of times it hurts to get your superpowers.
So true. Keeping it real for us.
But just keep trying things.
Exactly.
If you don't try, you'll never find them.
Exactly.
They never get activated.
Exactly. Or as my mom used to say, she used to say that try was a 4-letter word, meaning like a curse word. She's like, don't try, just do it.
Do it, yes. Yoda, right?
Yes.
There is no
try. There is no try, just do. I know, I'm convinced that Yoda, Nike, and my mom should have all gotten together.
The perfect trio.
Exactly.
Well, before we wrap up, what inspirational message do you have for our superheroes who are listening?
Okay, so I'm going to pull my message from Ted Lasso. I don't know if you and our others have watched it. I resisted for years. I was like, whatever, it cannot be as good as people say. And now I do presentations around Ted Lasso's lessons of leadership in life. But from him, I just love this idea that every choice is a chance. Right? Every choice we have is a chance to do better, do good, support others. And so it comes back with, choosing to be a change agent or choosing to be a leader. Every day, all of us have many, many choices to make. And it's all about making good choices and really being intentional and thinking about what matters most to us. So every choice is a chance is the message that I'd like to leave us with.
That is wonderful advice, and I'm so glad you chose to be on this podcast because it's been amazing. Thank you so much.
It has been my honor. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all the amazing work you are doing for our profession. We need more of you. You're awesome.
Well, I think we have a wonderful group, and you are so helping to build the league, and what an asset to the league. Thanks for being a part of it, Captain Upside.
It is my pleasure, Pink Phoenix. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to tag out for our listeners. You can learn about other League of VetaHumanz superheroes at VetaHumanz.org. If you like this episode, and I know that you did, please subscribe, rate, and share it with your friends. And remember, use your powers for good.